We're live. Ay, ay, ay. We did it!
Yay!
Okay, well, we're live.
Yay.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Not sure how the sound is going to be since we're outside. We're not going to stay outside. But we wanted to show you a little bit of our house, more of our house than you typically see. So there's a front door. And
Oh, I love those pants.
here, you guys stay there. I'll come out further and give more of like a view. So, it's a very rectilinear house. And it's really cool. It was built in 1965. And yeah, we'll tell you more about it. But here, why don't we do a quick tour? I can be your cameraman.
Dad said we're going this way.
Well, Hank had stuff in there.
Here's my favorite room.
Yeah. Go ahead, lead us down there.
Oh, okay, cool. Sneaky window across from the bathroom. Uh-oh, we're not showing them the bathroom.
It's not totally clean, but it's clean enough.
Atrium.
It's just not...
We're just gonna start with like the best part. There it is. It's pretty amazing.
Plants, moss on plants.
Eileen has done a lot of work in here.
Yeah.
Several revisions.
Yeah. There used to be rocks everywhere, which were really hard to walk on.
They're not comfortable.
Yeah, and they didn't look great in the space.
So, after moving them off of a huge area, I moved them all away from here, and then I planted a whole bunch of this stuff, and then put them all back before realizing I was going to take them all out. So, yeah.
Then we have
All
the
right,
orange room.
yes, you
that
go
we
do the
named
next part.
For the carpet. Also, I'm currently cleaning out my clothes, so there is going to be a huge pile of clothes.
Can't see that from here. I think I'll just keep the frame over this way.
And there's some green flowers.
Yeah. Eileen was having a birthday last week, so that's why the balloon and the flowers. So this is a really cool area for sitting and working and
I was doing some writing here.
playing games and hanging
A
out.
lot of good work, a lot of good play happens right here.
Yeah. A lot of good puzzling.
A lot of good puzzling.
Do we want to
Mostly
sit
a
up
lot
here
of
this
writing.
time?
How's the light?
Do we want to sit up here this time?
Oh, maybe. It's
kinda
a little
echoey.
backlit. Oh, you
I
wanna
meant
sit over
on
there?
this wall.
Yeah, you're kind of casting shadow. Right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it just feels so good.
It does.
Join you over here.
So
Needs to be a
Wow, the quality is so much better on this.
this month we were going to talk about our theme is what is luck? Because last month was what is love. And I dressed up super nice.
Yeah, you did, babe.
Excuse me. Yeah, so that's a little bit of this crazy cool house. I wanted to tell you guys a little bit of the story.
how we got here.
Yeah, so in our first Sunday Best, we told you a little bit about,
Life.
what happened after we stopped filming the trip. But, so we were homeless for a while, then we rented a place, then we were homeless again. I mean, we were never homeless, we were living with family.
But we didn't have our own home.
Yeah.
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 And
we were like crowding
And the
somebody else
rental
out.
was only
6 months, 5 months.
5 months?
And I was working freelance, and so didn't have a salary, and you got your teaching job, but we couldn't buy anything. And we were looking and looking and looking, and then finally I got a
in a
job.
shed.
I took a job Yeah, we were sleeping in a shed. It was a really nice shed.
It's a great shed. There's no bathroom.
Yeah, no running water.
I mean, just Eileen and I. The kids were in the house with Eileen's parents. It was fine. It was stressful, but it was fine, and it was very kind of them to put
It's
us
so
up.
amazing.
It was a very interesting transition that definitely stretched all of us in different ways, and all of us in the same ways. Some space and mental space, and a lot of things. But
And like just staying positive, I think.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of really discouraging things that were happening.
Yeah.
But just like,
Remaining grateful and hopeful.
yeah, and being able to like, for me, take that to work every day, even though like home was
Really hard.
not
hard.
well
I mean,
defined.
there were things about it that were really amazing. Like I got to spend time with my parents, which was really cool. In a lot of ways, just like, you get older and different, and
Well,
it's
and
neat to see
we had been gone.
people in a different part of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had been gone for 6 months, 5 months, and then we got back. Then we went to my parents' house for 2 months. Then we
Yeah.
came back. Then we moved into the rental house, and the rental was short term from the get go. And then we were back at the farm, which is where you'll see the first video of the trip is we were at the farm, and we were that was like home base. So anyway, all that shifted and everything, but we were talking about luck. Abin and I were talking about luck earlier, and in the context of this book that Abin just finished, which is called
Conscious Luck.
Conscious
By
Luck
Mom
by
suggested
Gay
to
Hendricks.
Okay, Hendrix is amazing.
It's really good.
Well, why don't you talk? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, we read
Here,
those
I'll switch with you.
like,
You scoop it.
after a little while. So we were talking about first, like, what is luck?
What is luck?
Yeah, and I think luck is essentially letting God bless you, or I guess like it sounds passive, but I think it's also an active thing. Like you have to consciously,
Well,
yeah.
no, okay. Well, how I would.
Yeah.
You can finish.
You have to consciously like allow luck or blessing,
Good things.
good things to happen to you.
Yeah, I think in general, people define luck as good things happening to you. That's lucky.
I think
Yeah.
that.
Or bad things not happening to you, like
Right.
walking across a bridge and then it falls into the river.
Yeah.
That's good luck, right? Bad luck would be being on the bridge and it falling. So that's how the word is used.
I feel like luck is a subset of how you view the world. Because, like, I think that luck is just what you put out. Like, if you put out, oh, I'm never going to get anything, or, oh, it's obviously I'm going to fail, then you're going to fail because that's how it works. Like, if you go into an interview and they're looking for someone confident and you just go in and you're like, oh, I'm going to fail. And so you obviously go in there not confident and you're like, I'm going to fail. They're going to be like, yeah, you failed because
Yeah.
you weren't like expecting to succeed.
Right.
So I think,
Well, and I think too, though, like, what does succeed mean?
yeah.
Like, if you want a really specific thing and you're going to be unhappy if you have anything else, then your ability to be lucky is really hard because, like,
Succeeding is such a pinpoint.
You've narrowed the
yes.
goal, the
Right.
bullseye to such a
Whereas
fine...
you could be lucky in getting something that you didn't expect. And I think a lot of times that's what we think of as lucky. Like, oh, I didn't expect that. And this amazing thing happened. And I couldn't see it coming and I wasn't working for it. But it just came anyway and it was amazing. And so I think being open to that,
Yeah.
like, is essential.
Yeah, that's
Because if you're not open to it, then you're like, oh, wait, that didn't really fit with what I was already thinking.
Yeah.
Therefore, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
But it might be what you want. You just,
Like a
just didn't
deeper.
know. That's really cool.
Well, and that ties in to sort of the overarching theme of this Sunday Best channel, which is like the whole point of this is that we wanted to share a worldview that we came in contact with many years ago and are still learning to live in, which is, the new covenant, which is just a drastically different way of understanding what God did on earth than most mainline denominations espouse. And this is not some new interpretation. We learned about it through a rabbi turned follower of Jesus. And he talks about all of this concept being rooted in mostly Paul's letters. Paul talked about like how, so the new covenant is, I think we've talked about it a little bit in the other two of these Sunday bests that we've done, but what you see when you see most Christian organizations is some version of the old covenant just being played out in a new context. Because the old covenant was about right and wrong, do this, don't do that, and when you mess up, offer sacrifices and feel bad about it and make penance and make reparations and then be restored to the community and all that. And it was all codified and very structured and all of that. What Jesus did was change the entire paradigm, which was very, very hard for those people to grasp because they had lived.
And now it's
and
still
still,
hard to grasp.
Still extremely difficult for people to grasp because it's such a departure. But Jesus made it clear that the new covenant was not like the old. But most church denominations make it exactly like the old.
Exactly.
What you offer in terms of sacrifice is no longer an animal. It's, sadness, and it's asking for forgiveness and begging, or in the Catholic Church, it's like confession and penance and
thinking about it, which I think is so ironic. Because it's like
thinking about,
okay, if you've done something wrong, you need to really think about how it was wrong, which is in itself a sin. Like, let's pile some more. Let's pile some more.
One of our
on top.
favorite books that we have is called "What Is Snooping?" and it's a book. Oh wait, that as it goes along, it's like do not, and then it explains exactly what to do.
If you ever wanted to or thought about snooping.
It's almost like a text. It's like a how-to text on how to snoop in the context, in the with the conceit of telling you not to do it. Yes. But here we're going to explain exactly how to do it.
Yeah. Like all the ways you hadn't already thought of.
Yeah.
Here it is. Let's talk about snooping.
Let's talk about snooping.
Okay, we were like in some different town and they had this box of giveaway. They had a whole bunch. This was just like the most ridiculous one. There's all kinds of let's talk about all kinds of terrible things
lying,
and how to do them more effectively. Here, I'll just read you a little bit of it. Thanks, Joy Berry. Let's talk about snooping. When you get into people's things without their knowledge about it or wanting you to, you're snooping. When you try to find things out about people without their knowing or wanting you to, you are snooping. Snooping is being nosy and sneaky in a meddlesome way. No one likes it when someone snoops. Get out of my room! Okay, I know. I really love reading. It's important that you treat other people the way you want to be treated, but here are all the ways to not to. Do not listen secretly to what other people are saying. When other people are talking together, do not try to listen to their conversation without their knowing about it. And it even gives you a detailed picture in how you could actually perform this act. When someone's on the telephone, this is great because we can't do this anymore.
Can't do this anymore.
When someone's talking on the telephone, do not listen in on another telephone. So classic.
You used to be able to do that,
White
kids.
Christmas, yeah. Do not spy on other people. Do not watch other people without their knowing about it. Oh my gosh.
You got to hold it longer than that.
Oh, sorry.
So basically, it's a how-to book on how to snoop.
It's a how-to. It really is.
So, in the context of what not to do, what the parallel is in churches is that Jesus or God basically said, like I read last time, in Zechariah that, there's a new thing coming. Well, that's not in Zechariah, that's in Isaiah. But it's like there's a new thing coming. It's not like the old. And then in another place he says, I'm going to deal with the sin issue in one day. And and he's talking about Joshua in the current time, but it's the same name as Jesus. Yeshua is the same name.
That's why we call him Josh.
Yeah. And there's this very clear and obvious through line where God's like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. It's going to be amazing. The whole sin issue that started in the garden is going to be dealt with. I'm not going to relate to you anymore on that in that context. And then he does it.
Yeah.
And then he rises from the dead and doesn't really explain it like explicitly, which is really interesting. And it's not the 12 that figure it out. It's really Paul that really connects with it. And Paul's like he calls himself the apostle oddly born or something like that. Like he's like an apostle, but not like the others, because he didn't walk with Jesus when Jesus was alive. Anyway, if you're interested in understanding the New Covenant, we're going to talk a little bit about it, but really you should go to livinggodministries.net and learn directly from Aaron. Aaron is a really great teacher, but what he explains is that this concept and understanding of how God relates to humanity is
radically different.
It's radically different because here a little bit about his story. He was he was raised Jewish, but then he was completely secular for a large chunk of his adult life, very unhappy, and then realized he wanted to reconnect with his spiritual roots. And then he doesn't do anything by half measures, so he went full bore and was becoming a rabbi. And during the pursuit of becoming a rabbi, he was already a highly educated economist and professor. And so when he was studying all of the Torah and learning to, all the things, he started researching the Messiah and learned that the requirements and
the timestamp.
There was
Prophecies.
a timestamp on the prophecy. Exactly. Thank you. There were all these prophecies about the Messiah, but one of them in Daniel was timestamped, like very explicitly, like in a number of weeks and stuff like that. So he was talking to his teachers and was like, hey, the Messiah had to have already come, this very clear, blah, blah, blah.
What are we waiting for?
Yeah, so he was so anyway, he connected the dots, just logically and just, using the data and was like, oh, this Jesus guy really was the Messiah. And he had no idea what that meant, but he presented that to his teachers and they were like, whoa, 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 that's crazy. No, it's not Jesus, and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, you can learn more about Aaron's story.
But I think that epitomizes the not being willing to receive blessing because you have an idea that you care more about than blessing.
Yeah.
Than the thing that you can't imagine. You're like, no, I want to hold on to what I can imagine and what I can come up with. And if it's not that, or if I'm going to reject anything amazing or new or wonderful or different. Because
it's really hard. It's going from thinking that you have to constantly pay for your sins to being everyone in the entire world is forgiven is a really big jump.
It is.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
huge.
I mean, we're still working on it. I work on it every day. I mean, it'll be great.
A thing that we say to ourselves.
I don't have to consciously think about it.
A thing that we say out loud to ourselves and each other often is, you're already forgiven. You're already forgiven. And
it's the best.
We've been doing it for years, and it's really been transformative in our relationships.
That I never say I forgive you. I never for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah,
really
because
said
your forgiveness doesn't actually matter.
Because I can't forgive you. It's I have no power
Authority.
to forgive you. It's you are forgiven.
Yeah.
That's just a fact of you existing.
I mean, you can
I can accept that your forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're
Absolutely.
you are forgiven,
Yeah.
or I cannot.
But no one can accept that forgiveness for you.
yeah,
Only
Yeah.
you can accept that forgiveness and live in that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
No one else can be there's no amount of groveling anyone else could do. There's no amount of making amends that anyone else can do to change your mind. Only you can just accept it or not.
Oh, and it's powerful. The second you let the truth of the fact that whoever that person is that you're really mad at, that God already died to forgive them, it absolutely changes you physiologically. When you meditate on the truth that God loved everybody, and including that person that you're mad at or that has deeply wronged you, and that God saw fit to die and suffer for them and forgive them.
Yeah.
When you meditate on that, it actually changes you physically.
Yeah.
And we have lots of stories we could unpack about how we've dealt with that personally, but like we can absolutely testify to the transformative power of meditating on that truth. It will change your life. If you take nothing away from this video, just that Jesus died, Yeshua died, as prophesied, many ways over many hundreds of years, and took care of everybody's sin debt. So the context of sin, God created it, God invented it, and then he dealt with it.
Yeah.
Like it was all codified, it was explained. Adam and Eve were told not to do something, they did it. Then all the ramifications for that flowed downhill from there. Then the law of Moses was given, everything was explained. And then this very elaborate system of, offering sacrifices and doing all of these things. And then that ended. That ended the day that Jesus died. The curtain tore. There was no separation between the holiness of God and humanity because the sin debt was taken care of.
Yeah.
So God could fully interact with humanity now because his holiness wasn't no longer offended by our lack of holiness, because his propitiation, his death on the cross, took care of that separation.
Yeah.
So that ushered in a new covenant. Okay, you're not going to hear any of this in churches. You're not going to hear almost any of this talked about.
You might hear part of it, but also you'll hear that's the
like,
problem.
Jesus died for your sin, so now you just gotta
live right.
Be as good as you possibly can and feel really bad when you mess up. But church.
You don't. Like that is the most amazing thing. Like to be in a place in my life where I can make for real mistakes and be like, that was a mistake. Yeah. I can admit it easily and freely because
You're forgiven.
It happened, and that's okay. Like I can't undo it, and I'm completely forgiven, and I can learn how to, proceed in my life in a way that's more conducive to happiness and love and joy and all of that. But what? It's so different.
It's a vast concept. It's very, very. It's enormous. It takes a long time to even begin to get your mind around, and it does really and truly change you as a person. So a lot of churches, I just want to finish this note. No, a lot of churches talk about you needing to confess your sins and accept God's sacrifice in order for you to be forgiven.
Yes.
That is a very, very subtle but very powerful lie.
Yeah.
It is not true. What's true is you're already forgiven at great cost to God. Mm-hmm. You can either connect with that truth and live in it or not, but there's nothing you do to create the forgiveness. The forgiveness already exists. And this is so important because if you believe that you have to do something in order to be forgiven, then you have power that God has not given you.
Yeah.
So there's a power dynamic there that's not true. But also, if you believe that God holds your sins against you, as in he's keeping an eye on them and tallying them, and you have to constantly confess and do something about them in order to be in good standing with him.
And he's going to hurt you if you don't.
The most despicable and vile thing happens, which is you begin to understand deep down that God could never love you because you are always sinning. And that is why these Christian religions flourish and they make gobs of money and all this control, but they are telling you a lie. They're telling you that God really is holding all your sins against you and he's still angry at you. And you live in fear and you cannot have perfect communion. You cannot even begin to commune with God when you think that he's looking at you in a way that he's not looking at you at all.
Yeah.
At all. And let me just say this, because we've been in churches over the years. There are lots of people in churches all over the world that love God and have a real relationship with God, but they're still a part of these organizations that are espousing lies, okay? So I'm not confused. There's lots of people in churches that know the real God. They're not intentionally deceiving people. They're not intentionally teaching bad truth, but it's easier to just go along with the system than to not. And
to forgive everyone.
And people like community, etc. So I don't want to paint with too broad a brush. There are people, I believe, who know they are preaching a false gospel and they're doing it intentionally to manipulate people. I believe that. I believe that is absolutely true. I believe there are lots of people who they're not intentionally manipulating people. They're not intentionally making people feel like God hates them, but they're still a part of that system.
Well, I think it's really difficult for you to teach other people that God loves you unconditionally if you don't feel the unconditional love.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if you've never experienced unconditional love, how could you possibly tell anyone about it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very confusing. I mean, you guys, when you were going to Summit, wasn't it like, talk a little bit about some of the confusing things that were told to you?
What I found most confusing was the amount of shame put on children.
Yeah, you were in the youth department. You were how old, roughly?
I was like 10.
10, 11,
10,
12.
11, 12. So I was like, well, I remember having this conversation with
Your Sunday school leader.
and I was like, so what about sins we don't know that we committed? And she's like, well, those don't count, but you should reflect on them just a little, like entertain the possibility and just think about how you might have done it. And I was like, what? I don't understand. Like, what do you mean? Because she would be like, because she didn't know what she meant. Sometimes she would be like, well, they don't matter. And other times she's like, well, just try and find them. Like, think about.
But why? I mean, what you focus on is what you,
Bring
if
about.
you focus on snooping,
You're
gonna think about
that's
snooping.
going to happen.
You focus on, I have bad luck.
Yeah, what you focus on is what you bring about.
Okay, so one thing that when you were talking earlier, I wanted to add was that it says that Jesus, the God, forgave people completely for his own sake. And I think that is really essential. Like, God's motivation is 100% freedom and love and abundance and everything good. So I think that we feel unlucky because what we're doing is we are concentrating on that, like, I've done these things wrong and I'm going to be punished. And, this mindset of like, doing good things equals blessing, doing bad things equals punishment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much dependent on all of these things it's not actually dependent on. And I think if you truly believe that God just his intention and heart was to bless you and to pour out amazing things on you, then you would be a lot luckier. Because what could be luckier than that?
Yeah.
Like, if you have the source of everything, if you have the source of all the goodness, if you have the source of all the everything you could desire,
Joy and peace.
then you have all the luck.
One of my favorite, I was just hearing this book that was quoting another thing. I don't know what it was quoting, but it was, true happiness doesn't come from getting what you want, but wanting what you have. So it's like, I think that's where luck comes also. It's like, if you constantly just want to be lucky enough to win the lottery, but you aren't like, wow, I'm so lucky that I have a house or food. I think that's another thing, because online people are like, this is such a silent, everyone's depressed and sad and no one has anything. I'm like, well, they have food and they have a phone, obviously, because they're making these videos. And it's like, when you think about all the stuff that you do actually have, it makes you a lot more happy.
Yeah.
The last part of conscious luck is, it's 8.
8 points.
8 points. And then
I
the
wanna
last
hear
point,
all 8.
you want to hear all 8 points. And the last one is radical gratitude, because if you can feel lucky, then boom, you are what you want. When you think about being lucky, what you want is to feel lucky. So if you can be grateful, then you feel lucky. Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Which is basically exactly what you're saying. And what's the line in City of Angels? where she's like, if you always want more, then
there's nothing to gain.
Yeah, if you always want more, there's nothing to gain.
That goes back to like what we were just talking about earlier, where I was like, the worst mindset ever to be in is wishing you were somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because no matter how blessed you are, however you want to define that, if your mindset is, I wish I was somewhere else, you're always going to hate your life.
Doesn't matter how great your
period.
life is.
Yeah. And the opposite is true.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Paul was talking about when he talks, I've learned the secret of contentment. I have been rich and I have been poor and I've learned to be content wherever. And
that is,
and
I
that
can do
is,
all things through Christ.
Yeah.
That's,
and if he's for us, then who can be against us? But the thing is, if you become happy where you are, then you're going to be happy
everywhere.
Regardless. Like, you can be happy in poverty. You can be happy. Like that's kind of where this theme ties into the house, which is why we showed you the house. Like, we were learning to be content in a variety of settings. We were learning to be content living in an 800 square foot RV. We were learning to be content. And this wasn't like we weren't doing like any kind of self-imposed torture or anything. We love traveling in the camper. It was great.
Yeah.
When you live in a tiny camper, your home is everywhere you take it. So like I think
also you have like a 5-foot bathroom that every one of your family members.
Well, there are pros and cons.
Pros and cons, absolutely.
Yeah. Every situation has pros and cons.
And that's one of the things I think we were all learning.
That
like,
had a lot of pros
in our bodies. Yeah, it had a lot of pros. It had some cons. And then that season that followed after we sold the camper was tumultuous. Like, we had to move our stuff and deal with all these things. Pros and cons.
I remember holding a box and I was like, this is the 7th time I have moved this box.
In 2 years.
I mean, for me,
I didn't really unpack my clothes until a year ago.
Yeah, until we moved in here.
There were like 3 years when I never fully unpacked anything.
Oh, there were things that were packed
I was like,
up
I still have this shirt? It doesn't fit because I'm like a foot taller than I was when I wore it.
Yeah. Ella grew a solid foot in 2 years.
I think so. I think that there's another thing where you think like, oh, I'm lucky if like I have the stuff I wanted, and I'm not lucky if I don't. But when we were living at your parents' house, and oh my goodness, there were just so many things, and I started losing my hair. I lost like 90% of my hair, and that was really difficult. And I was applying for so many jobs. And it was very frustrating. And anyway, there were all these things, right? Like, that were stressful. And what I did was I started reading a lot of Joe Dispenza. I started, was there anyone? But he talks a lot about meditation. And so I was all in, and I just started meditating a lot. And I think if I hadn't been that desperate, or if I had had a job to distract me, like, I was so worried about finding this job and doing this thing, and it wasn't happening, but that allowed me all this time. And I was so desperate because, wow. I mean, just whenever, like, you like, it's the classic, like, cancer thing where, like, you run your hand through your hair and there's like a wad of hair. That was me, like, every day. It was so hard.
I remember when you started wearing a hat everywhere because you had like no hair and it was winter.
Yeah. I was like, thank goodness it's winter. But but that difficult time allowed me to develop this really amazing meditation practice, which, I mean, then I'm like, well, would I trade that? Like, I think about that a lot. Like, would I trade, like, all these things, like, so many things I can think about that I really wanted and I didn't get them. And then I can see how, like, that led to these other things. And I'm like, well, would I trade that? Like, was it worth me not getting the thing I thought I wanted to have this other amazing thing
that
later?
You have.
Yeah.
Well, and that ties back into the house too. So, like, one of the things, because we had a really cool house in Raleigh, like, we really loved it. It was on a little lake, and it had a beautiful view, and like, we just to give a bit of a broader picture. When Eileen and I got married almost 20 years ago, we were broke. We were so poor.
Go back a little bit farther.
We were broke.
We had a lot of debt.
We had debt. We had school debt. I had credit card debt, which thankfully my parents took care of right before for our wedding present. They took care of the credit card debt.
No, it wasn't wedding, but it was.
It was. They were like, we don't want you to start your marriage with
we did,
credit card debt.
because I paid it.
well, the school loans we still had, but the credit card debt, anyway, it doesn't matter. So we were broke. I was making like $26,000 a year screen printing t-shirts. And this was in 2004.
Was it that? Yeah, okay.
So it was like 25. We'll just say 25.
No. I mean, it was like 1,800 take home.
Oh yeah, take
A
home.
month.
Take home, yeah. So it was, and we were living in a mobile home that your parents owned that was basically they were using for storage. So they graciously let us clear all that out, paint it, kind of put in new flooring, all this. So I'm like, this house you see us in now, which is amazing, it's been 20 years of work getting here. Like, I don't want you to think like we are, not that we broke. We were broke not that long ago. That's true too.
I don't know if it's like,
but
20 years.
20
We
years.
went from,
No,
like,
but there is like because the knowledge you gain, the experience you have,
and the credit. Like, we had credit because we had had a mortgage for 14 years and never never missed a payment, etc. It makes it that much easier for you to go and get a loan when you have that kind of a relationship with your lender, etc. But like, the point I was trying to make, I feel like I lost the thread a little bit, but like, if you're not open to being blessed in ways that you can't conceive of, if you're not open to God leading you down a path that you can't see, then what you're willing to receive is very limited. Yeah. It's very limited. And one of the things that we connected with about 2016, 2017, because I was always a big dreamer. Like, I was a musician and I always wanted to be the successful performer, and life and logistics and, just keeping food on the table and etc. kept getting in the way, so I thought. And I had all these dreams and goals, and they slowly I realized they weren't, all they were cracked up to be. And also, I wasn't sure that they were what I wanted. But I wasn't sure what I did want. I was in a long process of learning what I didn't want, but I wasn't sure what I did want. And I'm a pretty goal-oriented person. Like, when I set my mind to doing something, I do it. And so I wasn't sure what to set my mind on, in light of being fairly sure that I was no longer interested in becoming this performer, which I'd wanted since I was like 13. So this was probably my mid-30s. So I'd wanted that for like 20 years. That's a long time to have a goal and to feel like, at least in some way I'm working towards that goal. But then kind of really coming to grips with like, maybe that's not my goal anymore. Like, what is my new goal? Mm-hmm. And we were learning about the new covenant. We were studying, learning from Aaron and learning, what God had done for everybody. And I guess it was like I said, like, it was shortly after we moved to Beaver Creek, I think. And I was like, well, I don't know what I want. Like, I realize now for the first time in my adult life, I have no idea what I want. But I know that God has something better for me than I can conceive of. Yeah. Something better than I could ever imagine.
Better than you can ask or imagine.
Yeah. And I was like, that's what I want. So, and then I was like, okay, so how do you go about getting the thing that you can't see or imagine? How do you prepare for that? And slowly, God sort of just whispers little things. And it's basically like, well, you got to trust me, because I'm going to ask you to do things that you don't understand.
You're going to think are weird.
Yeah. And then also, you have to not judge where you're at. Like, if you're in a season that you don't understand how it's there's a Dawes line, a line in a Dawes song. Dawes is a band, and I've been on a kick listening to them lately. But it says, if you don't know where you're going, any road can take you there. And I think it's very similar to what I'm trying to convey, which is, once you let go of your concept of what you could do with your life, and you say, God, in light of creation, in light of the abundance of the planet, in light of what you did on the cross, in light of everything that you've done, I believe you have a better plan than me for what I should do with my life. So what next? Like, it's just tiny baby steps. It's like, does feel like fumbling around in the dark sometimes. And it's usually just doing the thing that you're sure you need to do today. And anyway, it's actually really freeing, because you're not in charge of the plan anymore. Yeah. And like, that really unlocked everything. That unlocked the trip. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know that I'd been like, because if I was making the plan and doing the, the math and going like, here's the long-term goal and this is what we're working towards, like it freed me up to be willing to sell everything, go on the trip, which, anyway.
Who knows? Yeah.
No, I mean, for me, it was an important philosophical step I needed to take in order to be comfortable doing that.
It's my favorite thing in my life so far.
Yeah, and I knew it was something you always wanted to do, but it was like a really big ask, and it was
That's
like
a big ass. Thanks, babe.
and the trip itself was both full of like incredible highs and also some really intense lows. Like some really hard times that
Mexico.
that really didn't make the videos. Like we didn't when I was editing the videos of the
Just like,
trip.
oh, we'll take that out.
Yeah, I was definitely editing those videos. Like it was not
And we stopped recording at the end.
Yeah, we stopped recording on day 150 because I was super
Yeah.
sick, Eileen was super sick,
Yeah.
and we made it
Basically,
to Arizona,
from that
which was
point on,
Eileen's
I just
last.
watched mystery videos with Hank in the backseat of the car and listened to an entire adult fantasy series.
Yeah, I mean the trip home was brutal. It was really rough.
Definitely thought I was gonna die.
Yeah, Eileen definitely thought she was going to die. I mean, a lot of people were dying from COVID at the time, and you had it really bad, and you had the secondary respiratory infection, which is the thing that people seemed to be dying from. Anyway, it was a dark point.
Yeah.
But
And it wasn't like we had a great hope at that time. It was
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't like there was
okay,
a
you're
shining...
sick now,
but
but you're almost home.
No,
Yeah.
But
but you're
you really
almost
don't.
to like
You don't
being
want to get
homeless.
home.
yeah, we had
Almost to being
You're almost homeless.
And then actually, you're not just homeless and not like without doing anything. You're about to move multiple times.
Oh my god.
Like you're about to move your grandparents and you're about to move yourselves.
You're
And
about to
then
move
you don't
all
know
your
how
stuff
long
into
you're going to
storage
live
and
there.
have nowhere to live.
Yeah.
yeah, and like
That's what we were going.
and that
into.
was part of the cost of unplugging from life. I mean, that's we couldn't have foreseen that necessarily, but I certainly don't blame anybody except us. Like that is
Yeah,
like when you do something
But you don't
like
even
that.
need to blame us. Like
There's
it's
no
just
blame.
Absolutely,
no blame.
absolutely. But great cost. Like there's pros and cons to everything.
great.
And one of the cons
Great
to
cost.
that trip
Cost
was
great.
the very uncomfortable process of
But-
that followed.
babe. What if we're lying?
What?
What if we had allowed ourselves to be really lucky then? Because we're like, oh, the cost of the trip was this blah, 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 blah. But what if that's a lie? And it was like,
Wow.
we could have had something so amazing
Right
as
after
soon
that.
as we got back, but we just didn't see the way to do it, and we thought we had to like do these things, and we just didn't allow that blessing to come.
That makes sense.
Maybe. I mean, I feel like we were. I feel
Like
like
we tell these stories to ourselves, but maybe they're just not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, and we were in a Bible study. We were hosting a Bible study with our small group before leaving the church there, and everybody gets to that verse where Jesus like very, very explicitly says like, whatever you ask in my name, I'll do it for you. Like whatever you ask, I'll do it. And there's a lot of debate about that. Like, was that a promise just to the disciples that were there? Like, is it unfair for us to extrapolate that to us? Like, Jesus was talking to living people. He was saying, whatever you ask for in my name, I will do it. Like, so there's that layer. And we were talking about all this stuff. And I was like, but what if it's just that, like, we ask and then we don't do what he tells us to do? Like, what if I'm like, okay, God, this is absolutely what I want.
Like,
And then he's like, okay, go and do this. And you're like, no, I don't want to do that. But like, that's how you
I
get.
have so done that.
That's
many
where
times.
you
or
get
it's
to.
like when you were like, I want to stop worrying about money. And God was like, great. When are you going to start?
Yeah. Well, that's its own perfect little standalone lesson that is the exact same as being grateful.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you can spend your entire life worrying about money no matter how much you have.
Yeah.
Or you can stop worrying about money immediately for your whole life.
Yeah.
Like that's a choice. And unfortunately, it's not a one-time choice. It's an ongoing
It's an
ongoing choice. But yeah, God was super hilarious that day. I was just like, it was almost as close to audible as anything God's ever said to me, where I was just like, God, I just want to stop worrying about money. And it was like immediate in my head. It was like, great, when are you going to start? And I was like, that's so snarky. Like, I was like, it was sarcastic, but not, it was amazing. And I was just like,
You see, God is actually really
Hilarious.
hilarious.
So funny.
And
But
I
if
think
you-
that's one of the saddest things about church is it's like God is this thing who's like very stoic and doesn't
Mostly
really like
concerned with
people.
punishing you.
Yeah, it's like, well, actually, first of all, he's Josh, not Jesus, and second of all, he's awesome.
Yeah. And has the best sense of humor.
It's so, yeah.
And loved everybody, had set everybody free, and is not interested in forcing people to have a relationship with him. He's not, like, man, if you go to these churches, some of the language they use to talk about worship, it really bums me out, because it talks about God in terms of, like, that he, like, loves your worship and needs your worship and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is not God. God does not need anything from you.
Except for, like, in a relationship. Like,
Yeah. Well, he wants to have a
Yeah,
relationship.
he
He
doesn't
doesn't
need
need
any-
anything
Yeah.
from you. Like,
It's different.
anyway,
Well-
it gets weird.
I had a thought from
Sorry.
earlier. When you said God created sin, I would disagree. I would say God created free choice, which is what created sin.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't say like God was like, hey,
I meant God created the concept
guys,
of sin. God created the concept
I'm
of...
about to
Well,
make
he
this thing called
created-
sin and don't do it.
He created
I think it was free choice, and you can to make any choice, you have to be able to make lots. Like
They're like, you can.
you have to be able to actually make a choice to have free will, and
Yeah, I think.
I think like the essence of sin is anything that is away from God and like therefore not loving or not kind. So
Yeah. I think it has to do with being like in alignment or not in alignment.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, sin is just.
But deeper intentions, like not.
yeah.
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 So
Well, what I meant by God creating
Yeah,
sin
yeah.
is the paradigm. Like, God codified
created-
sin
yeah.
through
a
the law
world.
of... in Genesis, he just created a choice to be in a trusting relationship with him or not. And that was the choice.
Yeah.
But then in Exodus, he gave the law, which absolutely codified sin. It said, this is what is good, this is what is evil, don't do what's evil, do what's good. When you mess up, offer these sacrifices. So that's what I meant.
mean, I
Like,
think that list is super not comprehensive.
but there's no...
Which is
Yeah.
why Jesus was like, if you've ever like hated someone, you've also committed murder, and if you've ever like lusted after someone, like that list is like
Super duper long.
so short. I mean, it's so like not your intention and your heart and your like.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, in
Well,
other
then
words...
the
It's
church,
not like a list of
the
every
church
sin.
kind of took what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mountain. They were like, well, this is the new rules, guys, okay? Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
are
So
our-
don't lust. Try that out. Like don't
Don't hate
ever
people.
be angry at
You
people.
never. Oh my
And
gosh.
if you do,
that was one
feel
of the-
really bad and confess it to somebody. And I mean, I don't want to mock. I don't want to like belittle. I mean, I do. Like, I mean, I do want to point out how ridiculous it is. And I do like exactly what Ella is saying. Like, Ella is saying that they took what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount and were like, that's there are definitely people who went through everything Jesus said and they found a bunch more laws.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, now we got to
Right,
keep
but
all these laws too.
That has nothing to do with your relationship with God. It's just like snooping. Like, let's not talk about snooping. Let's not talk about the sin. Like, that's not
Yeah.
gonna get us anywhere. I
Right.
mean, it is gonna get us
Well, that's
miserable.
that's part and parcel with the forgiveness paradigm, which is most people who think in terms of a Christian context and think in terms of a God cannot fathom an existence where good and evil and sin don't exist.
Yeah.
They cannot fathom that.
Yeah.
And I totally sympathize. It is absolutely ingrained in us.
Yeah.
But the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or the tree of judgment,
It's death.
is the tree that God never wanted humans to eat from. Never wanted judgment, never wanted the concept of good and evil to be a part of the human experience. But, like Aubin pointed out, without the possibility of rejecting a relationship, there is not
There's not
a real relationship.
Yeah.
But that is a very, very tough paradigm to walk away from.
Yeah.
Or to believe that there was a time before good and evil or judgment existed, and then there's all of human history from Adam to Jesus, and now there is a new opportunity to live in the new covenant where we're back to pre-fall, where God is not relating to humanity at all
And just walk in the garden.
in the context of good and evil.
Yeah.
That whole issue
Has been done.
truly is dealt with. Like, it's completely over. But that is such a difficult concept for most people to
A
grasp.
lot of the time we just say like wrong tree.
Wrong tree.
Or like that's
Well, because the point was God said that because Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil, they could no longer eat from the tree of life. So those are the only two trees that are named. Out of whatever trees, there were lots of other trees.
Judgment and life are...
But you can either live in the tree of judgment, or you can live in the tree of life.
closing.
But you can't be in both.
mutually exclusive.
They're mutually exclusive. And so extrapolate, there's just endless good things to extrapolate from that comparison. Like you can live in the tree of life, freedom, all the sustenance you need emotionally, spiritually, physically, or you can live in the tree of judgment.
And you can't.
And you will suffer, and it is absolutely horrible. And like everybody's choosing that tree. And not just Christians, it's all the religions.
Oh, and
all the religions
society,
and all
like
society.
anti-religion is absolutely choosing that tree.
And I feel like there are people in every religion that are choosing the tree of life.
Yeah, or at least have connected with the
Yeah.
truths of the tree of
Yeah.
tree of life, and are like, well, maybe, but it's just hard to get your voice.
It is really hard to go from, because when you think about it, you're not like, yes, judgment and life are opposing. Like, no one just instantly gets that, because it's not.
Because we're still alive.
Yeah, we're still existing. In like when we're judging, we're still existing, and it's not like we just suddenly keel over as soon as we start judging. So like visually and
Hilarious.
realistically, we don't have a like contrast between those things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there is one. We just aren't attuned to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's you can't see the spirit like we can see the carpet. You know, like, I think that if we could see that way, it would be completely obvious.
One of my favorite lines in what song is it? It's if you're not too comfortable in chains.
Oh yeah,
Yes, the Sundara Karma.
Sundara Karma. You won't come with me because you're just too
too
comfortable in chains. Yeah, I think about that line a lot in context to churches.
Yeah.
Like, you won't step into the freedom that God's offering because you're just too comfortable with your own concept of life.
But I do
and
think
what it
it's
is.
important to say again that it's not just church. It's all of society. I mean, I think especially right now, like, society is very
Polarized.
into right,
Judgment.
and wrong, and good and
Judgment.
bad, and
Yeah,
this is judgment everywhere. Death. I mean, that's
Yeah.
It's the sickness of humanity, and it is the symptom of the fall. But the antidote is already provided. And the truth is, people are living in chains that are no longer actually shackled to them. They're just like wrapping them around and being like, I'm still stuck. It's like, you're not stuck. Everything that needed to be done for you to be free has been done, and you are free.
Because it makes people feel confident in not progressing.
well, and not responsible. Like,
Or
Yeah.
not questioning. Like, because it takes a certain amount of,
ooh,
like,
I think people can't.
it takes a certain amount of humility and work to question something that you believe and have probably stood up for.
oh, yeah.
I think questions are way more important than answers.
I think that is, first of all, the fact that you became pastor, that was your first mistake, right? In my opinion. Like, I think a lot about that guy. Who was he? The one who said that, like, God sent COVID and a bunch of nonsense. And he's like, I heard him say this thing about, what's the new covenant? And basically he's like, it's exactly the same as the old covenant.
John Piper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paper. Like, for him, at this point in his life, to be like, actually, everything I spent my entire life
preaching.
doing and saying and living out is a complete lie. I mean, I mean, yeah, that'd be freedom for him to do that. But like practically being like everything I taught everyone for the past however many decades of my life was absolute destruction and death. Like to live, like you actually have to know freedom and complete forgiveness in order to be able to say that. Which would be amazing.
Because
like
your
I totally
self-worth,
want that for him.
Your self-worth has to be rooted in something other than your
yourself.
pride.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
you just lied your entire life.
I mean, I think
I feel like it works with anything. Like, it doesn't even just work if it's your entire life. If it's any
part of your life. Yeah, no doubt.
yeah, anything that you claimed as central to your identity and then realizing it's not that's just a really hard thing for anybody to shed. It's like, yeah, I mean, the in the bogus Christian world, they love to bring up the whole like it was when AIDS was a big thing in the 80s. It was like, oh, this is because homosexuals are evil and blah blah blah. And it's like,
God's
wow,
trying
man,
to punish them.
are you not evil? Like, first of all, are you not evil? Second of all, what did Jesus do?
And who do you think God is?
What did Jesus do? I mean, John the Baptist said, "Behold, the Lamb of the world, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world." And as I read last month, you know, God said, I'm going to deal with the sin issue in a single day with a forebearer of Joshua. Christianity as a religion is designed to control and manipulate. And that is what is happening. And that's what will always happen. It's never going to go away. Islam's the same. Control and manipulate. You know, Judaism is the same. It's control and manipulate. Religion is based in control and manipulate, and there's like violence, like real violence associated with stepping outside of. I mean, this is a fairly recent time in human history where you can step outside of the religious context and not be like
Busher.
Yeah, like not have your life threatened.
Yeah.
You know, because that was the way that the demonic, the way that the devil and the demonic were controlling the narrative. It was like, we'll just kill people that step outside of the context.
Yeah, people being fearful.
People being fearful.
Sure, fear is huge.
I think people find fear in controversy and find fear in controversy.
Right,
so
they're afraid of controversy.
Yeah, and so they find. I feel like also one of the most natural responses to fear is anger. Especially once you reach a tipping point.
Yeah.
It's like once you get enough fear, you're just angry.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's why there are so many people
coping mechanism.
who are just angry.
Yeah.
Because they're just afraid.
Mm-hmm. Which is why we're doing this. Because we want you guys to know the freedom that we're trying to learn how to live in. It is a thing. It is a practice. Like, it really is. And it's interesting how the truths of the new covenant are in non-religious places as well, like Gay Hendricks' conscious luck and conscious loving, and you were listening to some other thing that like
I listen to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you listen to a lot of stuff, but basically we're coming up on an hour. But so if you've watched this, thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
But like luck, not luck. I mean, luck goes out the window once you realize that the creator of the cosmos loves you. And actually,
or all the luck comes in the window.
Yeah.
I mean, luck is a term in terms of like. Let me clarify. Luck, I think, an inherent part of luck is
Blessing.
Is you having no control over it. Like it's like something that happens to you.
Maybe.
And I know that that's exactly what Gay Hendricks is speaking against.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, once you realize the truth that the living God is for you. And has done amazing things, documented things. I was saying this to Aubin earlier. There is no book on the planet that is as plentiful as the Bible. The Bible is in more languages than any book. There are more copies than any book. It's not on any bestseller list because far and away it is the book that is bought the most out of the entire history of books. This book is everywhere. And that book tells you the story, if you're able to see it, if you're willing to read it and able to see it, that the creator of everything loves you and died to show you that he loves you. And once you connect with that, luck is a silly word because you've got the creator of the universe that's for you and is willing to lead you into a life that is beyond what you could ever...
And you can't mess it up.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't mess up his being for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can mess
Yeah.
up, like we talk about this a lot. Like God has lots of, like people love to be like, what's God's plan for my life? God has lots of plans for your life.
Yeah, it
like,
depends
like,
on what you
do
decide
you
to do
pick?
today.
Yeah, like what are you going to do? Like what are you willing to do? What are you willing to work? Like you could be a concert violinist maybe. Are you willing to put in the work?
But you can't mess up God being for you.
You can't
You
mess
can't
up God
mess
being
up
for
God
you.
wanting these amazing things for you. You can't like do something that's
There's
going to
always-
make God not want to give you amazing
One
stuff.
of the things we say all the time is God is infinitely creative. So whatever choices you're making,
He can make it amazing.
he can make it amazing. And
Well, one of my favorite things that Mom said was basically everything in your life is like falls into a number. Let's say these are numbers between 1 and 2. That seems really small because it is. I mean, like there are a lot of other numbers. You don't even have any of the 3s. So, and within those numbers, there are infinite numbers. You're never gonna run out of decimal points.
Yeah.
And you can do stuff like we were talking about high school, and it was like you could not get a high school diploma. A lot of those numbers are now inaccessible.
You just
right.
lost
When,
everything.
well,
about
when you
three.
make choices, you change the parameters of what are possible.
Yeah,
But
you still
you
have
also-
infinite numbers.
But you also make things that are possible. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like when you make a choice, you're closing infinite doors and opening infinite
Yeah.
doors.
Because there are always more numbers.
There's always more doors.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't need to be lucky,
Or you are.
But you are.
but you're already incredibly blessed. Eileen said once to someone, they were getting to know each other, and this woman was realizing that Eileen had everything that she wanted.
and for no good reason.
And she was a
I did
divinity
not-
student,
I
wasn't
did-
she?
She was a divinity student.
She was
and I did
studying God
nothing to deserve these
at
things.
Duke University, a prestigious university, and
And I
she's
think like she did all the stuff to deserve
and she
things.
was like,
and she was like,
how
"Ah,
do you get everything that you
Yes.
want? She was
how do you get all this? Like you have everything. And I think for her, like she didn't have any of the stuff she wanted. And she looks at me and she's like, you like screwed it up over and over, and you've done all the wrong things, and you made all the bad choices. And but look at you, like you get everything. And
you said
I immediately was just like, God loves me because I let him. Like he gives it to me because I'm like, yes, thank you. I'll take that too.
God loves her because she lets him. God can love you if you'll let him.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a radical thing, which is why we felt it was important to take time to talk about this in a public forum like this, because the life that he's leading our family into, we never could have masterminded it. We never could have designed it. The whole publishing thing, Eileen's stuff, like
knows what
we'll have to spend a whole nother talking about the threads that God is weaving. But he's creating
It's not there.
He's creating an incredible thing that we are starting to see the glimpses of how the threads are coming together, etc. But it's not of our making. It's of our walking in. It's of our receiving, and that's active. You have to receive. Like you, God isn't in the business of forcing. Very rarely in Scripture did he ever force anybody to do anything. In fact, he didn't force Jonah to go to Nineveh. He did throw some things in his way when he tried to run.
He did get eaten
But
by a
he
whale.
never forced him to do it. And eventually he
But
relented.
that was God's protection for him.
Yeah,
Anyway, it's
he would have drowned.
I just want you to know that if you
He was also on a journey.
he was definitely on a journey. But if you've
Could be worse,
rejected
guys.
if you've rejected
I was on my way. And then
Sorry.
Bad
We
things
keep
happen.
interrupting.
and then I was at a low spot. And then I thought I was okay. And then I was at an even lower spot. And now I'm okay again.
Are you quoting something?
No, it's like
Oh.
paraphrasing Jonah.
Yeah. Jonah's a great book. You should read Jonah. The sad thing is, in the end, Jonah is not okay. He just dies a grumpy old man. He never connects with the God whose love and forgiveness he was told to go and extend to these evil people, these evil Ninevites, who
He was so excited to see them suffer.
who take in the word of mercy and mourn and realize, yeah, we are horrible. We should stop behaving this way.
He's like,
We should let God bless us, and then he does.
We should let God bless us, and then he does.
Jonah's real bitter because they didn't do all the right things and suffer correctly.
But
It's like, I got eaten by a whale. You're just...
if you unlock the paradigm of the new covenant and Jesus teaching the old covenant when he was still around, Jesus was still teaching the old covenant. He was
Yeah,
he was
I think
hinting at
that's
the new
another-
covenant, but he was teaching the old because he was teaching people. Anyway,
How
this is too
dumb.
big of a thing to get into at the
Yeah.
end.
And
But
yeah, I don't
but no, yeah,
I'll do that another time.
another time.
Another time.
Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. Happy March.
Or whenever you're watching this.
Yeah, it is March. It's our
March,
so we but just to wrap up the house thing, which is what we started with, is this house. We all constantly are like, how do we get to live here? Like we constantly are saying to each other, like, how do we get to live here?
So amazing.
And God blesses people who let him. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And we're super thankful. All right, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.